up first, we've got Mo, just Mo. We had this conversation. We were trying to say, how do we do introductions? And he said, it's just Mo. So it's Mo from the Catalyst, and he's got the session Nudge Me where we're talking out of the box gamification for your next micro learning project is what we've got going. Mo, anything you need from me, or are you ready to go?
I'm good to go.
You ready to go, Mo? Then let's
Yeah,
go.
hell yeah.
All right, I'm going to be here. I will just be like off screen. So whenever you're
Okay,
ready, just call me back and we will chat.
awesome. Okay, so I've always had a problem with instructional designers, trainers, people that are working in L&D with one simple code, one simple thing that people always say. And hopefully that none of you are like that, is that we can change people. And it's always been a problem to me that us as instructional designers, we can change people. We don't really have that possibility. We don't really have that power. We don't really have that magic power that we can change people. But we can facilitate change. We can offer people the choice, the autonomy for them to change the way they want to change the way they're owed to change, according to the best practice or the righteous performance that is needed from their jobs or the task that they're appointed to. So this starts off my presentation about nudge me. And why did I choose the word nudge me? Like, why nudge more than anything else? So according to Nobel Prize winner and the father of behavioral economics, Richard Thaler, and also Cass Sunstein, who created the book Nudge. Nudge is the following. Nudging is any aspect of choice architecture that alters people's behavior in a predictable way without forbidding any options or significantly changing their economic incentives. So just discard all of that in the definition and just focus on one thing. It's any aspect of choice architecture. It's the best thing possible in learning design, if not in learning in general, is to offer people choice. And when people are offered the autonomy to do something, their behavior can actually change. They can reach to miles we wouldn't even think about or even consider because they have the aspiration internally with the enthusiasm internally that they want to reach or bridge towards. So, on these auspices, let me tell you what is behavioral change. Behavioral change, we never motivate for behavioral change. We only facilitate behavioral change. As learning designers, people that work in microlearning design, that train people, even work in talent development, we never know how to motivate because motivation is not a tool. There isn't a magic wand that we can use as supervisors, manager, people working in talent development, or even learning designers that we can do to motivate. Motivation is always a byproduct of a system or a function that we put up to allow people to have that choice. So we can only facilitate behavioral change. But don't take my words for it. Actually, there was a case study that we have used at the Catalyst and we applied. So we had a cultural model for awareness for company X. I can't really talk about which company it was. And this cultural model has been situated in the company and no one knows anything about it. It's pretty hard that you have a cultural model, you're trying to put an understanding across a company-wide population and no one knows anything about it. So what we wanted to do is that we wanted people not only to be aware of the cultural model, but also be affected by it, that they can apply, they can adopt it. So if you have been through the emails of Seven Taps, and you went through the scavenger hunt was actually a small, showcased, mimicked part of what we did in that company. What we did was a complete gamified system, no PBLs. And if you do not know what a PBL is, It's points, badges, and leaderboards. Our core understanding of gamification was to engage people and nudge them. Just lead them by choice, their choice, to adopt the cultural awareness model, and also to refer to it and work on it. And just to give you a little taste of what we did, this was for 2,000 employees scattered all over the country. And I come from Cairo, Egypt. So this was across all of Egypt. And we did a full on gamified microlearning application that went for an entire month. So to show you the lesson plan of how it was, we had the content starting from program rollout, how that we can let them understand the cultural model, which consisted of 5 pillars of what agility is all about. And each and every part of content, there was a purpose to it. And then we put an engagement type. But not only that we put an engagement type in the form of microlearning, but also there were miniature games, artificial intelligent text-based questions. We did simulated conversation, typography video, mini quizzes. Each and every one had a specific role, had a specific need, and even were put at a specific timing that we asked what would be the most suitable and convenient time for you to go through a microlearning, and it was during that time. We did that for 3 weeks straight, and then at the end of those 3 weeks, we did a full e-learning just to reinforce everything all together for 1 week, and this is the result. We had 65% of the employees showing enthusiasm and following up with the story of the full gamification system in a narrative format. Initiatives for communities of practice were formed. And 3 months after the campaign, the model was actually used as a reference in company-wide surveys and staff meetings. The Fate of Andrew, that game that you went through, is just 3 episodes. What we did were over 12 episodes dissected across those 3 weeks. All we depended on was pure storytelling and core engagement. So on what auspices and what basis did we build all of this? Let me tell you how. It was built on behavioral economics and neuroscience. First off, it has to be cognitively easy. There has to be cognitive ease in it. People need to start to be scaffolded onto how the microlearning is all about, because not all people are used to chunks of learning, instructional units that can be satisfied in a small bite. And also, they're not used to playing games on their phones. And we used to send this on their phones during specific times. We built a habit. And cognitive ease is things we are exposed to repeatedly feels over time more true, and it becomes further relatable, effortless, and it feels good because I built a familiar understanding towards it. But not, again, this is not something that I came up with. This is what B.J. Fogg, the doctor from Stanford University, who created the book Tiny Habits, talked about. How can I do that? How can I get into behavioral change? How can I cater it using microlearning? Well, B.J. Fogg created something called MAP. A behavior, in order for it to be fostered into something else, to be altered, to be changed, needs to follow something called a map. Behavior, to put it in the simplest form of definition, an asserted form of action a person does. This is what a behavior basically is. An asserted form of action, a physical reaction towards external stimulators, just an action, asserted, observable, and measurable. You can see it, you can feasibly understand what it is. So in order for you to do that, first, you need to apply means of motivation. Motivation are means of influence to perform an action. Means of influence. People are influenced when it comes to motivation in the simplest form by one of 2 drivers, either a desire to gain or a fear of loss. So if I put them into a situation where there is a purpose, there is something that they can gain, they would run towards it. And if they feel threatened that they would lose something, they would run towards the thing that would get them the most pleasure. MAP, M, and then ability. When it comes to ability, ability is the power to perform an action. Your ability to do something needs to be feasible, needs to be easy, not causing you any burden. Something simple, something that I can react with and wouldn't cause me to be challenged to the extent of being frustrated or challenged to the extent of being cognitively overloaded. And last but not least, which is the most important part in Fogg's model, is prompts. Prompts are the triggers and the cues that we use to foster a new behavior based on context, not just any triggers and cues, based on a specific context. I know what I said might not mean a lot and you don't really know how it works, but let me go even deeper. So we have the following. We have a motivation to do something. Either I have high motivation to do it or I have low motivation to do it. And something that I need to do. It's either hard to do or it's easy to do. And accordingly, the motivators would be pleasure, pain, fear. And when I say fear, fear is the expectation of a negative feedback. So it's either something I'm threatened by or the expectation of something that can put me into a sense of threat. Also, I could be doing this because I want social acceptance or I'm afraid of social rejection. When it comes to ability, ability is something that I'm able to do without any problems with time, no constraints. The physical effort is not too much. I could do it repeatedly. Again, remember cognitive ease. It doesn't cost me a lot of money. The mental effort needed for it is just the right amount of challenge. And I can build a routine. That's why we sent it during specific timings each and every time, to the extent that people over time started to expect when would be the next episode, when would be able to continue the rest of the story. And finally, prompts. Now, prompts come in three different types. We have the signal time of prompt, which is I am able, but I'm not motivated. And when we do signal prompts, we are trying to put it something to be at cue and easy to build their motivation bit by bit. We're putting them a signal, like a light post, like something that they can always, when they see, okay, you know what, I'm not going to be discouraged to go for. Facilitator kind of prompts. People would bounce motivation. They need something that is easy, has means of step by step. They can get scaffolded first before they go into it, not something that they can just rush into it right away. And last but not least, the prompts that are sparks. Those are for people that are extremely able and motivated. They're just waiting for it to happen. If we're applying this to people over spaced repetition with cognitive ease, and we're putting the right motivators, the right sense of ability, and the right prompts to the population that we're aiming towards, we will get the action line going like this. As long as we're not using triggers that would fail, which has low motivation and hard to do, and as long as it's something that has high means of motivation and easy to do, which will be something that people can react to, something that people can work with. What is easier than letting them follow through with a story? And as a matter of fact, when people think about stories and narration and progression system, they don't really consider gamification. And people, when they always think about gamification, they think about a video game or slapping a game onto something to make it more fun. Fun, as a matter of fact, is pretty much overrated. Fun is people having true means of not only engagement, but immersement, being immersed into something. I could be immersed into a simple game of chess, or I can be immersed playing on my Xbox, or I can be immersed into something completely dumb, but I'm just liking it. I'm just loving it. And since it's a story, everyone likes to be immersed in stories. But first off, let's explain what gamification is all about. Gamification, at the end of the day, is a system. Gamification is how to put up an existing system in learning design or in marketing or in people development, people engagement, come what may, the system, and transform it. A system that has an input and has an output, has people getting engaged with it, and an artificial means of conflict. So in our case with learning design, The input is the learning, the output is their behavior being changed. The artificial conflict that are there is them engaging with the subject matter, and the people that are in it are the players. So, gamification, in a nutshell, is the application of game mechanics in a non game context to promote desired behaviors and drive specific learning outcomes. As a matter of fact, gamification used to drive motivation and engagement of a certain system. So I'm only trying to put some steroids to an existing system and impacting the entirety of its components using the simple utility of mechanics. So what is mechanics? Mechanics, I like to call them the steam engines, the things that drive a gamification system forward, the things that we can use to do the nudging, the things that we can use to build the motivation, the things that we can use to put as triggers and prompts as we go forward in any system. So mechanics, and there's also another word, dynamics, and sometimes people like call dynamics mechanics or call mechanics dynamics, but let me put a difference between them because it's not nuanced. It's actually completely different from one another. Mechanics are the set of rules that dictate the outcome of the interaction within a game, elements that move the actions forward, something that we can use to let people act with certain constraints, within certain constraints, or have the choice to do something, or we take the choice from them, or we offer them assessments, or we offer them means of skill progression, and so on and so forth. That can be represented in the rules, that can even be represented in the narrative itself, and so on. Mechanics are directly related to provoking the motivations of our players, which are the learners. What about dynamics then? Dynamics are the byproduct of mechanics. Designers put mechanics. Dynamics is the behavior that people start to go through. Dynamics include the constraints, the emotion, the narrative, the progression of relationships, the direct behavioral response of mechanics. So I put a mechanic, and then dynamics come into place, and dynamics come into place through the learners, through the interaction. As a matter of fact, we're putting mechanics for people to practice specific skill, acquire specific knowledge, and those are the constraints and those are the rules that we're putting. And it gets showed in the form of dynamics. Now, I know that mechanics, again, might be a little bit hard to get, but let me give you a couple of examples from the systems that we use. We already have our own framework of using mechanics. So let me show you a couple of examples from mechanics that you can use the next time without putting points, badges, or leaderboard. First one, urgent optimism. Urgent optimism is how we get shake to our core. It's how we go through Netflix episodes and just wait for the next episode to come in, or the next season for Game of Thrones. We're urgently optimistic to go into the next one. Embedded assessments. Embedded assessment means a measurement in our design to enrich our learners' performance and indicate their cognitive recollection. Embedded assessment foster and encourage win some, learn some kind of environment. As you go forward, you're getting more embedded assessments and your level of mastery also starts to elevate. Lastly, it's theme and narrative. Theme and narrative, we like to put the god Gaia as a representation to it. Because when educating a story as engaging, intricate, and inspiring, it's a thing that I can let the learner think like me. I take them on a journey that I want to put. Yet, I'm not telling them that you should embody yourself with this. I'm leaving them the choice and the autonomy to embody themselves through that avatar that I'm putting into play. And one of my favorites, loss aversion, is when I can actually let them fail and get them feel a little bit of defeat, put that bit of challenge, allowing the learners to change their mindset about how to progress in a specific game. This is how learning curves start to progress. So what does all of that have to do with microlearning? Well, we already have an existing system of microlearning. Microlearning is an instructional unit that provides short engagement in an activity intentionally designed to elicit a specific outcome from the learner. My role is to get a full-on microlearning design, set it up, chunk it, And then when I do that, I put a gamification system with mechanics that would allow the learner to attain learning, to be drive towards a specific learning, to gain a specific thing, to get and collect the codes like you did with Faye of Andrew, to learn something and get embedded assessment through the microlearning system. And if you do not know how to do a microlearning system, this is the end of my pitch. And I'm going to leave you with some things. I'm going to leave you with the microlearning cogs. The microlearning cogs is number one, think about the utility you want for your microlearning. Utility is maybe course augmentation. Maybe you want them to remember something. Maybe you want this to do performance support. And then think about the actions you want for that microlearning system or that microlearning bite. You want to drive the learner's performance towards a challenge thread, preparation, to highlight a value, to put reinforcement, to put a post challenge, and afterwards start to think about the type you want to use. That type could be a journal, an infographic, a video 10 minutes, 5 minutes, who cares? It could be a game, it could be a quiz, it could be a podcast, but this is how you go through it. Set the utility, put the action, and then put the type. Once you're done with this, lay over your gamification system where you can nudge people and give them the autonomy to choose their change by themselves. In order for you to go through all of this, I am leaving you two things. Number one, go to your phone and put in the address web.zapper.com. Scan that code and you would find a widget in an AR format and has all of the cards of utility, action, and of types. So you can use it in your next microlearning design. And last but not least, if you have went through the scavenger hunt that we had, you obviously collected the codes and you know there is a code to do and a code to perform with. That code would open up your takeaway message, which is my gift to you. That takeaway message has everything related to microlearning, has a way for you to design a system on your own. And the people here at 7Tabs already have the takeaway message. They can send it in a link to you and you can just put up the code and access it yourself. I'm done with here. This is how you can look into change, gamification, and microlearning in one formulated way.
Awesome.
Can I put the scanning code right again? Okay, this is the
go for it. Go for it. Show it back on the screen. Hang on. Let me make you full video so people can scan it and all this good stuff. First of all, I don't know that there's enough emojis for this session so far. I think we need to see a few more along the way. Mo, for just a couple minutes, I'm going to pull Gideon back up on stage. I've been kind of watching the chat to see as things go. Just a few of the questions that pop up. One's very tactical. Everybody's asking, what's the tool you're using to have your screen, stuff come on board? Of course, right? Of course, everybody's like, wait a minute, how did you do that thing? And I'm guessing it's Prezi Video, but I want to confirm.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right. And there's also a link, if you could put it in the chat. I know you pulled the QR code, but if you have those chats, if you could share that in the chat for everybody. There's a lot of interest from folks on what it is that, again, it's up on the screen, and I'm sure you'll do that for us. And I loved how you opened.
I send the link.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for that. And again, I love the fact that you brought up in the beginning that we can't force behavior change. We can't control that, but we can influence it. And that doesn't mean that the work we're doing is somehow less than. It's actually critical. And I think that's something I've sometimes seen in my career is it can feel as less than to say, well, no, we actually can't change behavior, but we can influence it tremendously. And I think that was awesome.